Yo, what's going on? This is Kieran for Getting Our Shit Together. And I'm delighted to be joined by Dre, who goes by King Dre. And his brand is How to Be a Player. So slightly different to Ghost brand. Dre, thank you for chatting with us, bro.
Oh, thank you for having me on, man. Thank you, man. It's a pleasure to be here, bro.
Well, no, the pleasure's mine, man. Especially like I know where you're at with the amount of followers and stuff like that, and you're really ahead. So,
that don't mean nothing, man.
Time, well, listen, maybe you could just give us a bit of an introduction about who you are and what your brand is and what you're out here doing.
I go by the name of King Dre, and my brand is How to Be a Player. I don't want to say it's a brand. It was the name of my YouTube channel originally, right? And not that I wanted it to be provocative, but it's eye-catching, and it's a way that I live, right? A way that I've always lived. So sorry about that.
That's okay.
It's a way that I've always lived. So I just wanted to bring that into the internet world. But I know it's a title that'll get the player word kind of turns heads, and it's a provocative a little bit, right? So I could have named it anything else, but
yeah.
I've always called myself a player. So I said, okay, let me name it this. But I won't say that that's my complete brand, right?
No, for sure.
And then on my social media, I have it as the profile picture, especially on TikTok and Instagram, because a lot of younger guys are attracted to things like that. And I'm trying to reach them to help them. So if they see player, they think, oh man, I'm gonna learn how to get laid and but here I am teaching them how to spot this in a woman, what not to tolerate, have some self-respect, get your shit together. Of course, I teach to get laid and all of that stuff, but I more so want guys like how you have your get your stuff together, you get your shit together. It's the same thing. It's kind of like how I want it, how I envision, and it was all based on I don't like seeing men being taken advantage of by women. Like I have a soft spot for that. I hate to see women take advantage of men and divorce rape them and cheat on them, and the guys are, down in the dumps. Because I believe that weak, broken men make a weak, broken society. So whenever you have a society where the men are weak, the society is basically weak. And that's what you see a lot in Western countries, in the UK, Europe, countries in Europe, in America, certain developed countries in Africa, Asia, and certain places. So they have this Western ideology, and this Western feminist ideology seeks out to destroy men, and we have become weak.
Yeah, you're referring to something there, which is like we talked about it a little bit before. It's that quadrant thing of like strong men make strong societies build weak men, just out of sort of necessity. It's you don't have to be strong to survive. So life is cushy for us in the West.
Right.
Don't have to hit this higher standard, which is really interesting. I mean, I'm sure, like you, I'm in lots of different sort of groups on Facebook related to dating, divorce groups, and like you're talking about these guys just getting like divorce raped or however you want to say it, and it's a mindset thing. And I like the first, like you can see it right where it's a guy will make a post. And it's like, and I'm sure you've seen hundreds of these, and it's like, my woman cheated on me. We're still living at home. She kicked me out of the bedroom. I'm sleeping on the couch. She occasionally wants to bang me. I just want her back. I love her so much. And it's like, dude, where's the punishment for her? Like, not physically, obviously, but where's the like pushback? She's just beating you up. And it's a mindset thing. And that's like, that's the first thing. But it just made me think. But we were, just to intro it out a little bit more, we were talking before the call about, because I thought we might have a little bit more of a debate, your brand being the player thing and mine being more traditional maybe. But actually we spoke, and yours isn't just like it's like you're saying, the player thing is more of like the eye-catching. You get the guy through the door because what young guy doesn't want to learn to get laid?
Right.
But then you're going to keep him around by being maybe a father figure, or being like, look, here's some things I can point out for you.
Right. You see, the thing is, society feminized media and society, and I don't want to talk too much about this on your channel because they kind of flash.
Go for it.
They kind of demonize the term player, the term player originally, and I use it as in its original term, the term player originally meant a guy who was good at doing what he was doing. So whatever it is, right? And it came from a street, an urban arena, like they would call guys who were like the good at what they were doing, if whether they was drug dealers or pimps or whatever they were good. These guys who stood out, they would be called players.
Top dogs, yeah, the guys.
The top dogs, they were the players, right?
Yeah.
But with being this type of guy, this attracts the most women. So you have this association with, you know, being masculine and being dominant in whatever area that you're in. This naturally has women, right? You naturally have women. Well, of course, women can't tame and control these type of guys. So over time, this term became demonized.
Yeah.
Right. It became demonized. So that's why I was talking to you earlier, like the mindset of how I say, like, I've always felt like I was a player. Like, I feel like I'm good at what I do. Whether you have one woman or whether you have 10 women, I'm good at what I do. I'm good at dealing with women. I'm good at, you know, that's what the term player originally meant. And I use it in that context. It don't mean manipulating 10, 15 women. It don't mean, you know, abusing and women and none of that shit that they think that they say that it means. It doesn't mean that. And this is coming from somebody who I come from the places that these terms originate. If you understand what I mean.
Yeah, no, 100%. That's an interesting history lesson of the word player. I did, yeah, because as you're saying it, I'm like, yeah, actually, I think I do remember that, like maybe 20 years ago.
Yeah, like, a long time ago, it wasn't. Now it's kind of demonized, but back then it was just more so the guy who was doing his thing with whatever he was doing. But this guy had a lot of women. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah. Because I can be a trick, right? I could be a guy who gets a lot of women by spending my money and being a trick, right? And paying for sex. Does that make me a player? Just because I have a lot of women, because I'm paying for them? No. I can be a guy who kidnaps and drugs and date rapes women and shit like that, and I can get a lot of women that way. Does that make me a player? No. I can be a guy who abused women and beat them up and, you know, do the narcissistic thing. That don't make you a player. The player is just a guy who was good at doing what he was doing, and just doing it the right way. So that's where I come from with it.
So that's an interesting thing. So a lot of guys in our industry who have been coaches, a lot of them have sort of come from a very difficult place. Maybe they're even on the Asperger's or autism side a little bit, and they put loads of time and effort into this skill, like becoming generally attracted to the opposite sex, right? And then they're like so excited about that it takes over their life, and then they want to teach it. You look like someone who never really struggled with this too much. So what's your origin story there, and how you came to be? And
where are you from? Where country?
London.
Are you from? London. Okay. Well, you guys pretty much have like kind of the same kind of thing that we have over here, where you have like kind of rougher urban environment. So I come from a kind of environment like that, an urban environment, and in these environments, especially back in the days, it was a lot going on, and the guys in this environment were a lot more ruthless, so to speak. It wasn't as structured as far as man, woman. It wasn't like this. It was just, I don't know, it's crazy. It's hard to describe. But I said that to say within the music, you know, because you grow up seeing pimps, you grow up seeing drug dealers that have a lot of women and stuff like this, and these guys are ruthless. And when I say ruthless, I mean they're not pushovers as far as when it comes to women, right? You know, and also the women were a lot more aggressive in these environments. Even still today, the women who are from poor environments or impoverished environments where they have a system of government to depend on, because every poor environment or country in the world it's not like this. But when you have women who don't depend on the men in their society and they can depend on the government, they're a lot more masculine, right? Yes, because and they have a lot less respect for the man. So here you've always had this, and it started with feminism in the 60s. This is why you see when you hear me talk, I always go in on feminism, and a feminism had a lot to do with this in these type of communities. But when you have this element where you know, you have an impoverished society, but the women don't depend on the men, right? So there's no kind of connection. So you have women who are ruthless, taking advantage of men, doing whatever they want to, because they're not protected by these men. They're more so protected by the government. They get their food from the government, they get, and all of this shit. So here you have an environment that's kind of like the Wild Wild West.
It's
and
crazy, isn't it? Like
this breeds you to have to be a certain type of way. So and this is just me noticing things. So I came up in an environment like this. Bitches ain't shit. I heard this when I was 6 years old, right? And in music,
that's the mentality that you're hearing.
Ain't shit. So I grew up with, and I grew up this way, basically, and it was just based on my environment, the music that I listened to, because this was the type of music that we listen to in our environment, the movies and things like that, and then you start dating and dealing with these same type of girls who have mothers who are ruthless, right? So we have to deal with them at 10 and 11 years old. And you have to learn how to navigate it, or you get chewed up and spit out. It's the same way, even in different type of environments. The thing is, the men in these environments are castrated. The men in my environment are not castrated. So there's a pushback. And
what's the difference? What's the difference in the men specifically? Let's say from I guess you're talking like a you'd call it a lower middle class, maybe impoverished background versus like maybe where I came up quite easy, you know, like quite middle class. So
and a lot more, a lot of different environments. Like, let's say if you don't come from, and I'm only speaking in, this isn't indicative of every poor society or every impoverished society. We're talking about a society that's impoverished, but the women don't deal with the men, and there's also feminism that permeates the minds, right? This feminism thing. So you have it's a combination of things, and this is what you see, the way that these women act. But I
agree with you. I agree.
I'm getting what you're saying. I'm getting into what you're saying. But the difference, I just wanted to lay that out there, and not so you just think, oh, well, poor women or poor impoverished people, all of them don't act like this. It's just certain minded people. The difference is, and let's say like a middle class or suburban type of environment, they are kind of groomed through the media, movies, school, their mothers, to put women on a pedestal, and you worship women, and you know, women are God's green earth. Versus, I grew up hearing bitches ain't shit. Right. So I grew up hearing these hoes don't love you. These hoes want your money. I grew up hearing that, right? It's good that I grew up hearing that, because guys who grew up hearing put women on the pedestal, finding out that these hoes want your money. I don't care what background they're from. You understand what I'm saying? So it's not necessarily.
Well, I would say the truth's in the middle. I would say both ends of those axes are wrong, and the truth is more in the middle. But right.
But you know, a lot in our space, you know, a lot of guys are finding out that, you know, and of course, certain things like the way we grew up and hearing things like bitches ain't shit, that's kind of extreme. And I understand that. I'm not going to say that it's, you know, bitches ain't shit, but it's extreme, but it was necessary, because a lot of bitches wasn't shit. A lot of bitches ain't shit now. A lot of bitches, they do dirty shit. Just, you know, we have, you know, they vilify men and masculinity and all this shit, but they don't talk about how most of these men are taking care of children that's not theirs. They don't talk about, you know, the ugly side of females and shit like that. But we grew up seeing this. Yes. You understand? We grew up seeing it.
Definitely. And that's right across the board in Western countries, which is, I guess, all we can speak for, is actually, I don't know, maybe you've lived in a authoritarian Eastern country, but I haven't. But there's the microscope never seems to be on the women or women at large, right? It's like, like in terms of what the news is talking about, the programs, the films, anything. I mean, you and I on a podcast or something can talk about it, but like I say, it's just like, where's the introspection? And if you're going to talk about like averages, generalities, it does feel like women are not being told this message of like self-responsibility in the same way that maybe men are.
Of course not. No. No, that's completely due to, again, the F word, feminism. I don't want to keep saying it on your
It's
channel, but
it's okay.
uh yeah, man. I kind of got into this thing a few years ago, about 10 years ago, because I was always wondering, like, why do women have this disdain for men? Like, why does it seem like they have a disdain? Why does it seem like we have a disdain for them? Like, it would almost seem like when you hear a guy say bitches ain't shit, that sounds like there's some type of disdain there, right?
Yeah,
So as
yeah.
I got older, I wanted to realize. So I started getting into, studying different schools of thought, and I landed on feminism. So I started to get deep and deeper into feminism, and going back into the 50s and 60s, and specifically here in America, how figure out a way to say this without being too politicky.
Yeah.
Specifically here in America, feminism was used because back then in America, the history of America ain't all great, right? I'm pretty sure as far as with race and
Civil
things like that.
rights. Yeah.
Right. So feminism in the 60s was a tool used to kind of curtail the civil rights movement, right?
Right.
Yeah, it's crazy when you kind of look into it. So I kind of forgot where I was going, but yeah, man.
No, but we're identifying the wider trends, and yeah, where does this come from? Where does this
Okay, got you.
the analysis on men from society at large, and the lack of analysis on women? Yeah,
right. You have this, like I said, you have this feminism thing, and it almost seems to be like a gender war. Kind of control over.
Certainly online, it feels like that, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's every day, even around you. Just the way women, like most women see men as an enemy, like as a threat to them. Even walking down the street, they see men as some type of threat to them.
Yeah, right? I tell you what, but just in London, have you heard of this Sarah Everard? Maybe not. I don't think.
No, I never heard of it.
So this is like national news at the moment. So this happened about maybe 2 weeks ago now, I think. This lady was abducted, and it looks like she was killed by this police officer. And it was this enormous thing. And now, there are all these sort of this backlash from it. And I think it's mostly online, and online is always a little bit noisier than real life. And if you
right.
You go outside, people are generally all right. And Twitter's a little bit more extreme, but yeah, it was like you were seeing some of this stuff, which was like there was a peer in the House of Lords who was suggesting that maybe there should be a curfew for men after 6 p.m. She walked that back later.
It's fucking insane. Like
it's nuts, right? It's an insane thing to say.
Like women don't kill men in their sleep. There was a girl that just got arrested for shooting her man in the head. She shot him in the head.
While he slept.
Woke up, while he slept. He thought he had a brain aneurysm. She rushed him to the hospital. He was like, oh, he woke up with a headache. Woke up with a headache. Say, rush me to the hospital. He thought he was having a brain aneurysm. Turns out he got a bullet in his head, and she accidentally shot him. So should we put women in cages because this bitch shot her man in the head while he was asleep? Right? Like, come on. But you got to think of how sick that is, right?
Yeah.
Yes, whoever that man was should be prosecuted to the fullest extent. They should put him under the jail for doing something like that.
Yeah.
But men have a curve. We're kind of like that's feminism though, and feminism is an ugly cancer designed to destroy men.
Well, just to fill it out, like it's like that was very, I think that was roundly dismissed. Like that's not going to become a law or anything like that.
You know what though?
God.
If we keep letting things like that slide, see, we look at it like it's crazy right now. Right now, it's like, oh, that's insane. This ain't never gonna happen.
Yeah.
Right, but the way things are going, in about 20 years, if this don't slow down, that probably will be a thing, right? And I'm not saying it to scare anybody, but when you think of things in December 2019, right, you would never think that there would be a virus to shut the whole world down like this, right? We've seen, but just how fast things can change. And now you can't go anywhere without a mask. You almost feel not safe if you don't have a mask on sometimes, right?
Yeah.
So where we can't even fathom that. Like there's certain things throughout my life that I've seen in history that I would never have been able to even fathom. Like Barack Obama being president.
Yeah.
I was literally arguing with a guy 2 or 3 years before he was president, and not to kind of shift it away.
No.
Literally arguing, getting ready to fight him about will there ever be a black president in the United States, right?
Oh, wow.
Literally come, and I'm like, that'll never happen. He was like, oh, you never know. And we got into it was heated, literally on the brink of blows. And here it is 2 years later, we have a black guy, the president of the United States, right?
Yeah.
And I said, and if you, a lot of your viewers may not be from America, but if you're from America, you know how serious that is, right?
Of course. Yeah. I mean,
it's serious, right?
Yeah.
I said that to say, when you have concepts like, well, that's kind of crazy for men to have a curfew. Yeah. It sounds crazy. Yeah. But if you look at the way things are going, right? If you really think about it, it don't sound far-fetched that people would really try to push for that. Case in point, you have this term called toxic masculinity, right? You hear this term all the way, toxic masculinity. Yeah. How crazy is it that the ills of human beings, men, the negative qualities of men and women, you lump them under a thing called toxic masculinity. If I say, hey, be strong, don't confide in your woman. They say, oh, you're holding your emotions in, you're toxic. Are men the only people who, toxic masculinity, are men the only people who hold their emotions in? No. Are men the only people who get aggressive? Are men the only people who get violent, right? Yeah. All of these things have been labeled toxic masculinity, and these are just shortcomings of human beings, the negative personality traits of human beings in general. But here you have this term that all these kids use and they believe that somehow the ills of the downfalls of human society are the traits of a man.
Yes.
And this term has become the norm. And where does that take us? If you look down the road, where does that take us in 10 years? You already have men being stigmatized and demonized in a way that where you can't even walk with your shoulders broad in public.
Well, I mean, mate, yeah, exactly what you're saying. I've just realized something else as well. They brought in, on the back of this Sarah Everard, this murder case, they brought in misogyny. Any type of misogyny is now going to be a hate crime, right? So misogyny obviously is anti-women speech. Misandry is anti-men speech, but there's no misandry hate speech law.
Now
right?
listen. It's a
that's
crime.
Wrong. That's unequal.
It's a hate crime, right?
Yeah.
So do you know how many times, and this is not to, I don't believe in violence, right? Especially violence against women. I don't believe in that. But you know how easy it is for somebody to label something a hate crime?
Yeah, incredibly easy.
A woman can spit on me and I slap her, right? It's just a reaction, I slap her. Yeah. I would slap a kid if he spit on me. I would slap a dog. But being that though, this is now it's a hate crime. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
you don't need a huge amount of evidence behind it. You can just label it. This is a hate crime.
This is a hate crime,
and that becomes more serious. The thing,
it becomes more serious than a regular fight, or
It's like the RICO thing in the American justice system. It's like, oh, let's label it RICO or label it domestic terrorism, and then
RICO. You got. Yeah. I hang with a guy. This is how easy it is. This is what I'm saying. If you would have said in the 1950s and 40s that, okay, if this guy in this neighborhood robs and sells drugs, right, but he associates with these guys and these guys go to work every day, all of y'all can go to jail for 50 years because y'all hang with this guy. If you would have said that in the 1940s, people would think you were crazy. But here it is. We have laws like this. If I associate with somebody and I don't have nothing to do with their criminal activity or whatever, this is just my friend and we hang out, I can go to jail for 50 years too, right?
Yeah.
So this is how, when you think about it, it's like, oh, men's gonna have a curfew. That's absurd. It's not absurd when you think about where we're going.
I agree.
It sounds crazy. It sounds insane, but it's scary too at the same time.
It definitely is. And you're right. I mean, I'm sort of just dismissing it. Oh, that never happened. But you're right. I mean, crazy things have happened. And that is kind of the trajectory. I mean, I would just like to, whether this would ever happen in society, maybe that's a role of the likes of you and I, we need to have this sort of concept of like, look, men and women, are equally valuable, but they're different. They bring different things to the table. It's like their roles aren't the same. Like women don't want to go out and approach guys and do the legwork of, they want to sit back and they're the ones who get approached. And that's natural. That is the way it should be.
It's natural.
And it's like, but you can't, but all right, again, another thing that's on the back of this Sarah Everard thing, we're going to have plainclothes police officers in nightclubs when our nightclubs open up now, as a ruling, right? And it's just, okay, that's fine to protect women. Women do need protection. Like, there's this big, all of that stuff, right? They do get wolf whistled. They do find all this different stuff that we don't have to deal with, right?
Right.
But we do have to have some sort of leeway for clumsy attempts that guys make, if they're not violent, but they're just clumsy, of trying to hook up with a girl, because that's what society is. Society is men and women hooking up.
Right.
So it's we can't just demonize this thing and make it worse and worse and worse and worse. I mean, it's already at this pretty bad level. And guys have approach anxiety. I reckon this is probably half the issue, because they're thinking, well, am I allowed? Is it legal? Like, it's almost that sort of way of thinking.
A lot of younger guys, see, a lot of older guys like me, like, I don't give a fuck about that. If I see a good chick, I'm gonna go talk to her. But a lot of younger guys, especially guys who live on the internet and, they haven't experienced the real world yet, they really truly believe that they'll get in trouble for approaching a woman. They really believe that, like, they're scared to, not that they're scared to talk to women, but because I deal with it all the time. Like, guys are literally, and of course, I try to go in and figure out if they have some type of fear of rejection, and they generally don't. It's just like, some of them, it's like, well, I see this all of the time, and it's like, that's propaganda, man.
Yes.
And that's scary. That's bad. That's scary.
Yeah.
It's completely scary to where you have men and guys, young guys, who are scared to even go talk to them and be sociable.
Yeah.
You understand? That's insane.
That's one of the most freeing things about all of this dating stuff. Like, if you're watching this and you're thinking about whether you want to get in and try and go up and start approaching women and getting better at this stuff, it's so freeing. That ability of like, oh yeah, like the line of what is acceptable generally in society is way further than I thought. Like, and you just, once you get to this place where I remember feeling that 10 years ago, right? I remember going out in the public and feeling not anxious, but like, certainly not as free as I do now. Whereas, like, if I go out, it's like the world is my ally. The world's on side because I know how to talk to men and women.
Right.
You feel the same.
Right. Yeah.
And it's another thing. Like, regardless of getting dates and hooking up and all of that, like, that's like almost the bigger thing from getting into something like dating like this.
Yeah.
But listen, man, well, that might be a good place to call it for now. And I just want to say thank you so much for your time. And let's do this again sometime if you can.
Just hit me up, man. Just let me know. Kind of busy, man.
No, of course I know. Yeah, no, of course, mate. Of course.
But yeah, listen, if I'm down, man.
Yeah, decent, mate. We've had a really good chat. We've covered some stuff here, a little bit spicy, but I think we're on point here. I think if someone listens the whole way through, I don't think they could get us another thing. All right, man. Well, listen, I'll speak to you soon.
Okay.